Last time I was before a camera, I was speaking about the documentary, The Supreme Truth, on someone's podcast. And once again, the whole purpose of that podcast, the whole purpose of me being there was to promote the supreme truth, the entire supreme truth, and also to promote the fact that I'm coming out with a book, From the Cradle to the Grave, The Chronicles of a Criminalized Class, and also to promote my website. Obviously, once again, I find myself speaking about the difference between a rat and informant and a confidential informant, because that's what people keep gravitating to. So once again, I'm going to address this matter one more time. Well, recently, Al Sharpton came out, and Al Sharpton said that he was a confident informant and not a rat.
Reverend Al Sharpton has come clean about his secret past as a government informant. CBS 2's Dave Carlin tells us the activist admitted to helping the FBI bring down some of New York's most wanted.
I was not and am not a rat.
The Reverend Al Sharpton identified as confidential informant CI7, now admitting he wore a wire for the FBI. He helped the government go after boxing promoter Don King, music executives, and mobsters, including Vincent the Chin Gigante, who famously wore his robe and pajamas in public.
I was cooperating.
And so I want to tell you how these different realities affected my case. In my case, we had rats, we had informants, and we had confidential informants. Some of the individuals did certain things. For instance, on the wiretaps, they were confidential informants. On the search warrants, we had confidential informants. They were used secretly to secure phone taps and were supposed to be people who you could not find out about. Then at trial, we had people who testified. And so I'm going to take you through this again so you can understand the difference. And I'm going to start with my own case. So now, we had people that came to the grand jury. And sometimes the grand jury minutes you don't always get unless you go to trial. We were able to get ours. So the fact that we went to trial, we were able to get the grand jury minutes. So the grand jury minutes exposed the individuals who testified at the grand jury, although some of them did not testify at the trial. For instance, there was one individual who was mentioned in the Ghetto Quran who testified at my grand jury, but did not testify at the trial. And so you would consider him to be an informant, because although he didn't testify at the trial, he testified at the grand jury. And therefore, he was somewhat hidden. So you would call him an informant because he didn't actually come to the trial. A rat would come to the grand jury and the trial for the most part. Now, when I speak about the wiretaps and the search warrants, those are different because they use those confidential informants. And in the search warrants and in the wiretaps, you'll see CR1 or CR2. And they don't give you the exact name of the person. But because you know your case and because you know who's where at a certain particular time, it's easy to see who the confidential informant is. So on my podcast, when I break down the criminal justice system and how it works, you'll learn specifically how these things add up to take someone to trial. And so in Sharpton's case, I don't know if he went to trial or not, but the fact that he said that he was the confidential informant and not the rat seems to indicate that he actually never testified at a trial. Hence the term confidential informant, because if he testified at the trial, he would not be confidential. And so now that doesn't mean he may not have went to the grand jury. And the only reason why I'm speaking about that is because my conversation in the podcast reflects exactly it actually Sharpton's conversation reflects exactly what I was trying to say at that time. In regards to the ghetto Quran, the individual who went to the grand jury that's mentioned in that joint, he had, as an informant, he never testified. But the significance of him, the part that he played in the case was that he was the one who was one of the main ones who got the case to jumpstart, and he actually gave what they call the 302s. That's information that you give to an agent. He gave tremendous information on 302s. He went to the grand jury. He accused me of crimes that I actually didn't commit, and because a lot of informants are trying to get around their own cases, they will say and almost do anything to do that. And I want to remind people of something too. And I'm going to bring this up. I'm neither a Democrat nor Republican. I'm an independent thinker. So I'm free to speak how I want. I'll be able to speak in a way where I'm not hampered or hindered by labels and stuff like that. I say that to say this. Before President Donald Trump was actually elected as the president, he was under an indictment. And once he got elected, a lot of the indictments went away. And he is our current president right now. Recently, people who prosecuted him or said things about him got arrested, which shows you how easy it is to get an indictment against somebody. All you need is somebody to say you did something and you're arrested. And this is the reason why I believe that Trump is showing people the system. Say what you will, but he is showing you the system. Back in the days, there was a saying that said, you can indict a ham sandwich. Well, he is showing you that that is actually true. Because the same people who prosecuted him have recently are now prosecuted themselves, and they're prosecutors. I'm not speaking to the veracity of what's right and wrong. That's for a jury to determine if it gets that far. But the system is on display, and I need people in the neighborhoods. I need people to really pay attention. I don't care if you poor, middle class, rich, or whatever. Pay attention to the system right now because it's on full display. All you got to do is watch what's going on. You have a man that Reverend Al Sharpton saying I was a confidential informant, but not a rat. You have prosecutors getting arrested for prosecuting a president and whatnot. So it's a lot going on. I'm going to break all this down for you. And I'm going to make sure your eyes are wide open, especially our children, teenagers, and young adults. So you don't make the mistake of choosing that street life over a regular life, over something else you can do in life. And there's one more thing I want to speak about. And I want people to understand this. Everybody knows somebody. And families are affected because mainly with the people who are involved in ratting, informing, or being confidential informants, when we're all involved in the same thing, again, I think I spoke about this on the podcast, but nobody might have picked that up. Everybody knows everybody's family. And these things are serious considerations that one must take and, be conscious of. That people have families and people know that some of these people are family to other people and stuff like that. So that's something that's important to understand, not to forget about. That's just an afterthought. I've grown so much in my life from being incarcerated that I can move on and kind of forgive in my heart. I don't like to dwell on things. I like to move past things. All I seek always is an understanding of human nature. And once I can understand a person's nature, what made a person do something, it helps. So my thing is about understanding why a person might have done something to me that I wouldn't do to them. So that's the afterthought that I want y'all to think about. Peace.